Hello, everybody. It's Shalini here. Thank you so much for being here. I'm live, as you can see. We're going to have a conscious conversation with Iris Chen from Untigering. I'm really excited about this. I've been following Iris on Instagram and Facebook for a while. She also spoke and had a conversation with my friend Danuka from the Parenting Evolution. And I just love her message. I love her story, her message, and how she puts it out there, and how she is really an activist and really helping people. Yeah, and really helping children and parents, and it's very exciting. And I'm really excited to have her here today. Hi, David. So nice to see you. Thank you for hopping on. So Iris will be here soon. Iris is an author of the book Untigering, and she really kind of shares with us her approach to peaceful parenting. You can say gentle parenting. You can say conscious parenting. So she will probably kind of show us what that looks like. Well, that's probably what I'm going to ask her. So we're going to talk about that. And she's also going to talk a little bit about how did she come about this and why? And what does it look like in her life? She is a mom of 2 boys. I believe they are 12 and 14. So tween and teen. And she should be here soon. Hop on, ask any questions. You can put them right there in the comments. Or there's a little place for you to actually ask questions, a little question mark at the bottom. You can go there if you like. Whatever works for you. So I'm just waiting for some people to hop on. We're supposed to be on at 12 Eastern, which is actually 9 a.m. Pacific time. Iris is in California, so she is Pacific time. Yeah. And we're here with Conscious Conversations. And I'm just going to wait a few minutes. Yeah. Going to wait a few minutes, let some people hop on. Actually, I just got a message from her, so let me just reply. I think she's waiting to see. I'm just letting her know that she hops on, follows, and then I will invite her. And there she is. Okay. Oh, she requested. Excellent. Let me try again. Oh, there you are.
I made it.
Yes. Hi, Iris.
Hello, Shalini. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for saying yes and making the time for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here.
Yes, I was just sharing a little bit about you and these conscious conversations that I have. Really, the only way I can have a conversation now. It's so funny how that happens. And I just am so reaching out. I've been following your work on Facebook, on Instagram, and I just love what you share. And of course, I know Danuka and Telly. That's how we Tilly and I spoke a little bit. And she's like, "Oh, Iris is my friend." I said, "Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I'm reaching out to her for a conscious conversation." So again, thank you for being here. Thank you, anybody who's hopping on right now and joining us. And then anybody who watches this later on in the replay, it'll be stored on my Instagram page. And then I will move it to YouTube also, so that it's accessible to your followers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. So you are untigering. Untigering.
Yes.
Maybe we could start a little bit. And I know we had a little conversation that our journeys seem relatively similar. We're both the parents of two boys, right? Mine are 15 and 16. So, and yours is just almost there, right? Almost
Right.
there.
14 and 12. Yep.
14 and 12. So I understand the journey very, very well from that perspective. And definitely this kind of shift into conscious parenting. And as you know, my journey was struggling in the parenting dynamic. I apologize. My dog is barking. It must be that the mailman is walking around outside because he's going nuts, and there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I can't stop him.
It's totally fine.
So we're just going to not resist, and we're just going to accept what is, right?
Exactly.
The story of everything. So, I mean, I want to pass it over to you and just like maybe get to know you a little bit, share here. You probably have some people that already know a little bit about you, but maybe we can just get a new introduction to you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So, yeah, my story was probably very similar to yours, where it was, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I was a child of immigrants, and so really grew up with that type of tiger parenting where there is like a lot of rules, really strict, high expectations. And so I, pretty much continued that pattern with my children. I loosened it up a little bit, I,
Yeah.
brought in, there were things that I was like, oh, I'm never going to do that with my children. And so, yeah, I was just going along, and I think just came to a point in my relationship with my children where there was so much tension, so much conflict, because I was trying to control them. I was trying to get them to obey and to meet my expectations. And then finally realizing, like, okay, the problem is not with my children, but really with me. I need to change the way I am reacting to them, responding to them, engaging with them. Because what they really need is my help, not my punishment, not my control, not my expectations. And so, yeah, Untigering is really about me, excuse me, shifting away from that type of really controlling parenting and learning how to be in partnership with my children. So yeah, really, like, I have been on that journey. So it's not like I grew up in a gentle, peaceful parenting household and this came intuitively for me. Like, this was really for me starting from scratch. Like, this is nothing like what I grew up with. And yet I know that the patterns that I'm stuck in are not serving me or my family. So how can I break away from those and start learning these new skills to be empowered to have a different type of relationship with my children? And so, yeah, that's what Untigering has been for me, where it's coming from a place of a learner, right? Where I'm like, I don't know how this works. I don't have models for it. This doesn't come natural to me. In a lot of ways, I still have those old mindsets. So what I've tried to do through my book and through my blog and through social media and all that is to like talk myself through the transition and the changes of leaving behind all those things that I believed in the past. It's like, oh yeah, children need to obey, children shouldn't like have tantrums and all this stuff. And really, just shifting my perspective and and learning to find a new way to see it, a new perspective, so that I can have different tools to parent my children.
That is so beautiful. And you articulated it so well. So if anybody has any questions and you want clarity or you have specifics, please feel free to ask us, because that is so profound. I mean, I want to just reiterate exactly. I was available. I was a stay-at-home mom. I could not understand when my children started to push back. I couldn't understand it. I was like, but I'm here. I'm not giving you 100%. Here's the truth. I'm giving you 150%. What that really means to the viewers is that there was zero self-care. There was zero self-acknowledgement. And I was at your becking call. Now, again, of course, little babies need that, right? They really are fully dependent on us. But as my children got a little older, I too valued obedience, And I didn't see a reason not to. I was like, I don't understand. Why are they saying no to me all the time? What's happening here? You know? And what really started to show up for me was my reactions to them, my intolerance. And I went through the process. It's right there on my website. That's why I began here is that, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with them? I spent a really good part of a year, probably like them, him, and struggling with this internal dialogue I was having, expectations, and I want to say this, my like really no knowledge of emotions and feelings, and saying no, saying yes. What was all of this? Like, I really just had no idea, and I was just kind of going with it. And then I did have a child that started to speak up, started to really push back, and it wasn't like no, it was like, no, you can't make me, stop telling me what to do, you're controlling me. It was like all of it. And it really tied into my inner critic, my beliefs around what is motherhood, my beliefs around childhood, I suppose, and what is this role that I'm playing, and where am I? And my shift really occurred when I was able to start looking at myself and start looking at my expectations, and actually going kind of deeper, well, I don't know, it wasn't kind of, but step by step, little by little, deeper and deeper. And here I am 7, 8, 9 years later, still working on things, because the kids change, their needs change, who they are change. And I find an ease. I want to offer this to anybody who's watching now, as I'm kind of thinking out loud with you, an ease as they grow older and they developmentally need space from us and separation from us. How today, because of my unlearning, well, first I learned about myself, then I unlearned, and then I relearned, or brought in some new tools, I suppose, pausing, mindfulness tools, acceptance, acknowledgement, and really, really, really huge understanding that feelings, emotions are messengers. They are messengers to us. And I think one of my favorite things I learned was the behavior, and this is something I do every day. I did it yesterday with my 16-year-old. The behavior that I am seeing with my eyes is not necessarily what my child is intending. Like, I know now to look beneath it. It's not easy. I don't necessarily always know what to do with it right away, but I do know that I need to pause and step back, especially if I recognize the sensations in my body are rising and I want to like tell him something, and I want to react to him. So it's a really, really, really powerful shift for any of us that began this process. And it's really hard, really powerful, life-changing. And I feel right now, as I'm sharing with you, like I feel like something just released. Like it's very releasing. It's very releasing into things. And it's almost like I feel really weird, Iris. Like sometimes when I'm like not stressed, I like question myself. I'm like, oh my God, should I be stressed right now? I think, especially as teenagers now, I'm like, wait, maybe I should be worried about something, but I'm really not. So it's a relationship is what I wanted to share. That's where I was kind of going with it. It's this relationship with myself, and then it's a relationship with my children, or these, two beautiful people who I'm walking this journey with, this life journey. So
Yeah.
it's just,
I've had very similar, epiphanies in my Untigering journey as well. And like what you said about like emotions being messengers and behavior being communication, trying to tell us something deeper. And like that's not just for our children. I think we need to use that for ourselves too.
yes.
So like whenever we're feeling something, instead of just like riding it or, or trying to suppress it, we can we can ask ourselves, like, what is this trying to tell me? Like, what is this bringing up for me? And same with our behaviors, right? Like, if we're parenting in a way that we don't really want to parent, if we ended up yelling or we're like frustrated,
Yeah.
we want to punish and all of those things, instead of like internalizing shame about it, instead of saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that, you know, like, how can we see those things also as messengers for us? Like, what is my need that I was trying to meet in that moment? How can I get curious about my own behavior, not just about my children's behavior, but about my own behavior as well? Because like many of us didn't grow up with any sort of attunement to ourselves or like knowledge about how to make space for our emotions, understanding of why we behave in certain ways. And so a lot of like the conscious parenting journey is about turning inward and learning to understand like what is going on inside of me, so that I can heal those parts of myself, like show compassion to those parts of myself, so that I don't like project those onto my children.
That's perfect and beautiful, because that is exactly what the conscious parenting journey is. I mean, we come to it just as I did myself, what was happening with my kids. And you said it, I love it, because we can start there, like there's the need beneath the behavior, but at the end of the day, it starts with like, well, why am I acting that way? Like, what need am I trying to fulfill by acting this way? And we can't do that. And here's the honest truth. It's really hard to do that for our children when we can't do it for ourselves, because we're human, they're human. Our behaviors are really, again, like we said, communication, right? And there's a need underneath it. And that's why we're acting the way we are too. We need to be heard. We need to be respected. That's what we're saying. You don't respect me. So really at the end of the day, when we're saying these things, it's to even, and we're usually saying, you need to respect me in a not such a kind way. Usually it's a little bit that we've kind of entered that place of fight and flight, you know, we've entered, our nervous system is like, why is he talking to me that way? That's so rude. And we start to go in different various places. But really at the end of the day, this is a journey of reparenting, and it's a journey of understanding who we are, why we are the way we are. And I love it, you know, and our own needs. And when we meet our needs as the adult, so as the adult meeting our own needs, then we really don't look to the outside to have our needs met. And we don't look to, and then so we're projecting more like wholeness onto our child if we're projecting anything, instead of an unmet need, instead of like my sadness, my hurt, my frustration, that I'm not projecting it onto my child, you know. And I think that is such a that is the crux of conscious parenting. That's what it is. That's why this blend is so beautiful, because that's what it is. That's untigering. You're undoing that part of it. So then you are coming to your kid, you're coming to that relationship cleaner. You know, you're not coming with so much, I always say, baggage, or, you know, unfulfilled needs, unmet needs, and like woundedness and pain. You're not coming to your child for that. You're dealing, you know, you're able to deal with that ourselves. And the beautiful part is when we kind of help our children, we can't necessarily not wound them, right? But we are doing less. We're doing less. Taking Kate Northrup's words, let's do less. We're putting less onto them, less of our stuff onto them, because we're taking care of it. I mean, and that's it. I mean, that's where we want to be, the parent that our children need us to be. That's what we want to be. You know? I mean, I don't know any parent that doesn't want to. I mean,
sure.
So
yeah,
I love how
I think that's
that.
beautiful. Just like how, you know, we want to take responsibility for ourselves and for the work that we have to do, instead of placing that responsibility on our children, like what you said before. And I felt the same way. It was just like, they need to change, like placing the blame onto our children, making it their responsibility to make us feel good as parents. And I definitely felt that in the early years. It's just like, because I had this certain expectation of myself, especially, you know, for those of us who choose to stay home, we're like giving up all of these things, and we're like there for our children, and yet they're not falling in line and behaving the way that we want them to. And that's like a blow to our egos, because like we want to we want to feel like we are succeeding and doing what we have set out to do. And yeah, like how to let go of just placing that responsibility on somebody else
Yeah.
to control, control our emotions or control how we feel about ourselves, right? So yeah, for me, really learning to take responsibility, to be accountable for
Mm.
my own feelings, my own reactions, and not place that on my children.
Oh, so important and so hard, sometimes so challenging. That kind of leads me to wonder and ask a question around repair with our children, because I notice, especially as as they've gotten older and I've become on this journey, and I actually have said things like, "Listen, I'm trying to heal from so much at home I grew up, and yes, I feel can't raise myself." Oh, yes. I understand that so clearly, so well. I wanted to say though, I actually have said to my son, like, listen, I have never been a mother to a 16-year-old boy before. This is my first time in my life doing this. I mean, just I sometimes I just need to, like, it's humorous, but it's to bring in some real kind of humanness and some and I also want to take away sometimes the hierarchy. I really am learning from you, as I'm learning so much from you. And I kind of work this with my son, because I walk a, now I'm going to be super open and honest. I walk a line, like, when do I set a boundary? When do I come in and set a limit? Is that, and I do have to do the work around, is that limit or that no I might be saying at this time, is it coming because I am feeling like I should be doing something or should not? Is it coming from my ego, like, this is what a good mom, like, this is what a good mom does, right? Or a good parent does? Is it coming from lack, like an insecurity of, like, oh, my baby is growing up, like, I'm not ready for that? So I before I say the no, and I can tell usually of how I reacted, like how I said the no. Like, this is all something now I do as my children are a little bit older. Does this resonate with you? How do you feel about this word that we use of boundaries and limits and things like that, and natural consequences? Like, how does that work? Because your kids are just a little bit behind mine age-wise, just a little bit. You're bordering that space.
Yes, yes. I mean, when I think of boundaries and limits, I usually think about it in terms of like my boundaries and not their boundaries. So whereas I have to communicate like how I want to be treated, what our family like principles and culture are, but I try to resist placing boundaries on them, if that makes sense. Um,
Oh, yes,
in,
it does
in,
make
in
sense.
terms of like limits, like there are ways that sometimes I want to control them or like, you know, provide more limits, but I really try to do it in like collaborative ways where I can like
Oh.
say like, okay, I noticed that maybe you're maybe like, let's say, spending a lot of time on your screen and you're not taking any
This
breaks.
is the universal problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But instead of me saying like, okay, turn it off, it's time to
Right.
take a break, where I'm coming down on them in a
Yeah.
power, like a hierarchical way with
Yeah.
control because of my fear, because it's just like, oh, that, I don't feel like that's good for them or whatever. Instead of doing it that way, I really try to like bring up the issue that I see and then together, like, what can we do about that? How do you feel about that? Are you comfortable with how you're engaging with it? Do you need some structure? Do you need some accountability? Like, what is it that you want? Or are you completely fine? And it's like me that I need to deal with my own fears about it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
so to have a conversation with it. And of course, that's not always the case. Like, there are times when I like maybe just out of compulsion just want to lay down the law in some ways. But like you said, with repair, I think it's so, like what you said was so beautiful. Just like we're human, we make mistakes, we have feelings about things. And so how can we sort of level the playing field a little bit and communicate that to our children, especially as they get older, and to
Yeah.
work more in partnership with them so that it's not so, hierarchical, but more collaborative.
I think, and I want to just say that, and I appreciate you just reiterating that, especially as our children getting older. There's it's the feelings inside of you and kind of the awareness that you have is the same. It's not different whether it's a young child or an older child, and emotional regulation and these and behaviors like how we started the conversation. But like even even with like an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old, and we lose our cool, we lose our shit, and we can be like, oh, mommy was so frustrated, and she didn't get enough sleep last night and she took it out on you. I am so sorry. I did not mean to do that. Can I redo that, please? It's still teaching our kids that about mistakes and how we react and how we're learning. And I love it, leveling the playing field, because I think part of it is this is how we see it as a relationship. And I use this word also like parenting role. My role is mother, but I use it very loosely now, because I want to be aware that I can still fall into like attaching to that role. I'm not perfect. I'm a practicing conscious parent. In no
Yes.
means perfect. In no means I'm affected if I didn't sleep, if I didn't eat well, if I had a frustrating day, or maybe, something happened in the business, or something happened with your partner. Like I have to take care of that. Now with my children's age, I can say I'm really going through something today. I just had a really challenging morning. I need a little time to myself. Can't necessarily say that to the 5-year-old who's going to need you. So this is the work that you have to do, but it's really understanding, like you said, if I am coming from fear, to know like, oh, I'm in fear, like, oh my God, this is so bad for him. Why is my kid still on the phone? We're on spring break right now. Okay. So it's still a little chilly here in New York, and we're in spring break. So I do go, oh gosh, they sleep with their phones, they wake up with their phones, and I still do that. So right, I love what you said, collaboration. I'm noticing things. How can I support you? I mean, this is language from the beginning. I've worked with Susie Lula, and she says she used to say things to her son, who's now 19, at 5. She just started like planting seeds on how mommy does things and how daddy does things, and how we're role modeling for you. So at the end of the day, it's we're guiding our children. I don't want to like take away from my beautiful parents, but I wasn't role modeled certain things. So when I did reach situations with my own children at when I became a mother, I struggled. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. just listen to me. I'm just telling you just do what I'm telling you to do. And that was the beautiful part, that my child didn't. I had one of those non-compliant children. Now I have 2. So that, want to make sure, I mean, they're not non-compliant. Now we can communicate and collaborate. Sometimes non-compliant, so it can be frustrating. And then I have to look at myself, what was I expecting? So this is a journey, right? It's an unfolding all the time. You think you got it, and then it's like, boom.
Yeah. And I think it's actually so important for us to not get it perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because like what you said, like we want to show our humanity to our children,
Yeah.
because our children are human. So if we always get it right, if we're always peaceful and calm, whatever, then they might not feel like as safe to have a tantrum or
Yeah.
get upset or make a mistake or all of those things. And so part of it is like, yeah, fully stepping into our humanity in our parenting as well, with humility, where we can say, I messed up. I'm really sorry. I was going through something. How can we prepare? Because those are the skills that our children need. They don't need to be perfect. They don't need to like always be calm and collected.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to repair. They need to learn how to
Beautiful.
communicate when they're upset. So it's yeah, again, conscious parenting is not about like this Zen feeling all the time. It's really about, our awareness, our humility in acknowledging our humanity and
Yeah.
bringing that into our parenting. Again, not making them responsible for it, but communicating that to them. And I have found, like, when I have had to repair, that my children are like so gracious and so forgiving because they
Oh,
know I'm human. They say like,
yeah.
yeah, mom, we know. We know,
Yes.
like, because they don't expect perfection from me, and I don't expect that from them too, so we can show each other grace.
That's so beautiful. And you know what just came through me when you said that too is the type of dialogue that you were kind of showing them that you're having with yourself might be, the same dialogue they have with themselves when they make a mistake. Instead of like, you're so stupid. Why do you make mistakes? Or,
Yes.
when we, as parents, especially with younger kids, and we don't kind of show them, like, oh, mommy made a mistake. It's okay. Mistakes happen. Like the kind of dialogue we have, our kids, if they watch us like shame ourselves and guilt ourselves, if they watch it, they're going to absorb that that's what they're supposed to do with themselves. I mean, and we know, and this is part of the work that we do, at least I know I do, and I'm sure you do in coaching, is that our inner critic and our inner dialogue is so alive in us. We don't know. We think that's our own talk with ourselves, but that's sort of been coming down the pipeline and it's been programmed in our head. It's what we saw, it's what we heard, it's maybe what was said to us. It could be what was never said to us, but how we felt, and we didn't know what to do with it as children. And that is such a I also went through a short study course with compassionate inquiry with Dr. Gabor Mate. And that was one of my biggest takeaways from that was sometimes even if we don't repair and we don't share our humanity and we don't help our children, they can internalize and take things away and make their own meaning, because that's what kids are here to do, especially when they're young, 0 to 7. They are their brain is developing. They're really egocentric. They're thinking the whole entire world, and it sort of does, revolves around them. And everything, their main people, their caregivers, their parents, anybody that they're so close to, everything they're doing, they kind of can take it to mean something about themselves. Like if you don't do something, it can mean something about them. If you do mean something, it can mean something about them. So this is that showing them this dialogue. And like you just said, now your kids are like, mom, of course, this stuff happens. And I think that's so beautiful. That's mind blowing actually, when my kids kind of go, yeah, we know. Or I shared last week, I just was having a rough day and I told them, I said, listen, when I'm picking up everybody and everybody's done with sports and everybody's home, I'm like, oh, listen, I am going to go into my room for an hour. I need just a little time for myself. And they both are like, yeah, you know what? Do it. They didn't bother me. They came in a couple of times to just knock on the door and be like, hey, what's up? Can we help you with dinner or something like that? Something really sweet and cute. And were able to give me my space because I was having a moment, many moments, many moments, but I was having some. And I was able to express and ask for something that I needed. And what I remind myself of when I do that, although I can enter guilt as guilt mom can show up, but as I do that, I can offer that to my children. Looks like you might need, you're having a tough day. Can I help you? Can I support you? And if I allow now, I'm better at allowing, and this is as we allow for ourselves to experience our emotions, we allow our children. It's just so beautiful. But that's what I heard you say when you were talking, is that your children are internaling that dialogue of like, it's okay, mom. Like, it's okay. I can be okay with this mistake. And
Yes.
that's, I mean, that's life changing. That's like life changing for people. That would have been life changing for me. I'll tell you that. So now I'm doing it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's beautiful. I mean, I think we assume as parents that we have to like model perfection or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's really oftentimes through our mistake and definitely through the repair, like not just
Yes.
mistakes and then rolling with
Right.
it, taking the time to repair, taking the time to acknowledge our mistakes. And yeah, that is like very powerful for our children, I think.
And I think perfectionism and expectations really comes. I mean, I come from the Indian culture, also, you know, more traditional culture, if you want to say, um, hierarchy, respect, expectations, success. What is success? What does that look like? You know, and it's kind of like even just comes down the pipeline, you know, just coming down the generations, and nobody really questions it until you start to, I don't know, for me, see it in my children, you know, see it in them. It's like, yeah, it's interesting to me. And I think that's the perfectionism is what I'm kind of going with that, with the mistake, is that I even noticed in myself, it was like something so silly, like our morning, and how sometimes it would be a little challenging for me. And I found myself to be like nagging my son in the morning, and I couldn't understand why. Like I was like, well, I didn't understand, and it was starting to. And see, this is the beautiful part when you begin and you kind of embody certain fundamentals of conscious parenting. That my child's behavior, what he's saying to me, how he's acting, is there's something underneath it. So when he was speaking to me in a certain way in the morning, because I was able to pause and go, okay, hang on a second. He's not being rude. Something else is happening here. Or we would start arguing. I knew that I needed to look at myself. I said, something's up. And I also, because I do this work to get in touch with my body, I was like every time I would say something, it didn't feel good to me. I'm like, why are you doing that? What's going on? And through my work, through the deconstruction, I think it did take me 4 or 5 days, because I was kind of watching myself every morning for like a week. I finally realized that it had to do with the words, the language that came to me was like the fear of like making a mistake. Like that, it led to that. It didn't look like that until I started to ask myself certain questions, you know? And it's interesting. I want to just offer this out there. It's interesting. Once I got to that point, I literally, when I say I didn't care about something anymore, like it didn't affect me. Let's use that word. I wasn't affected. And when I needed to have a conversation with him, I was conscious. I was clean. I wasn't projecting this fear of mistake or what's it going to look like or what's going to happen, all that future based, you know, what ifs and worries and anxieties, all that kind of stuff. No, I was able to enter the present moment and be like, you know, like I'm noticing really, really nicely and really, really clean. But I actually went to down into the word of mistake. And I was like, wow, is this something that shows up in me a lot? Like this fear of making mistakes. And I actually brought that to their attention. And I was like, gosh, what's wrong? This is not a life altering mistake. It's like nothing. So it was, and I think, you know, our many cultures and our culture kind of really, really on mistakes and being perfect. And it's not like you're saying to your kids, like, be perfect. It's just that there's no wiggle room. There's no room for almost humanity, you know, and to explore and to grow. Yeah. And I kind of remember actually when I do my own work that when I was a kid, I used to always kind of say like, why do you have to tell me what to do? Why can't you just let me learn from my mistakes? So something like that also kind of happened, you know, like we want to protect our children from making these mistakes. And actually it's a disservice to not learn, you know, what could you do differently? What could you do better? I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling off when you said the word mistake and you went into that perfectionism, I was like, I'm really feeling it today.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned before, it's like, it's not always those explicit messages that we receive. It's often the implicit ones where you're just, you know, you experience like somebody else being shamed because they made a mistake,
Oh, so
or
true.
you notice that your parents are trying to hide something because they don't want other people to see it, or stuff like that. And so it's like all the things that we internalize that tell us that it's not okay to be human, right? It's not okay to
Yeah.
show our weaknesses, to make mistakes. And yeah, I'm definitely a recovering perfectionist, and like what I feel a lot of times is shame. Like I really
Oh,
feel shame when I make a
yeah.
mistake, and especially because I'm doing things in public now, on social
Yeah.
media, and I make a mistake in the public sphere. I just feel it. It's like this gut wrenching, like what you say, you feel it in your body, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, like in those moments, I really have to notice it and pause and like recognize where that's coming from and remind myself like, okay, I'm loved, I'm safe,
Yeah.
it's okay. Like I might need to repair, I made a mistake and I might need to repair, but it's okay. Like how can I, yeah, feel safe? And I think that's another thing
I love
where
that.
I tie my perfectionism to this feeling of not feeling safe,
Mm.
where it's like I don't feel safe to be seen. I don't feel safe to make that mistake because
Yeah.
I feel like I'll be rejected. And so like how to get myself, my body back into that place of safety, Um,
That's so beautiful. And that's so important. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that, because I feel that, like, that perfectionism and making sure we're perfect, and especially now and in the public eye with on your with the platform that you have, that people are watching you and you're just like, and that is the kind of the underneath that belief, that fear under perfection is to show, is the inability to show our I want to use this word, I'm using it very loosely, so, and in quotes, like our flaws, hide our shadow, hide our darkness, and the fact is we all have it. We all use language like strengths and weaknesses. I was listening to something this morning and it was like, write down your strengths and your weaknesses, and weaknesses, like, that's kind of, they're using it in more in Western terms, but like our shadow self in psychology, or something that we want to not show others, and because we'll be rejected, because we won't be liked, because we'll be abandoned by it, we'll be left behind. And these are our kind of deepest fears. And I love what you said, and you said it so beautifully. When you have to, the mistake, it may not always be the repairing on the outside with the other. It's more like repairing with ourselves, to say, no, you are loved, and that's the reparenting that we do, and go, gosh, it's so understandable that you would have done that, but you're loved. I love you. You are safe. Because that is, and you are talking about safety, the depth. We're not talking about physical, we're talking about that emotional safety of expressing yourself authentically. And I think even authenticity is feeling your feelings, and like every feeling is like important, and you don't just feel the good ones and put the good ones out into the world. We are multiple emotions. And actually, at the same time, I notice with myself, sometimes I can hold two, like I'm happy and I'm a little scared at the same time. You can hold both the emotions. That's like mind blowing to me sometimes, that even exists. But I have started to notice it in my own body. And so I just love that example you just gave of reparenting yourself. Really, at the end of the day, especially on on social media, if we make a mistake, we're like, "Oh, it's okay, sweetie. You're still loved. I still love you."
yes.
You know, yeah, that's a good one. And we don't necessarily always have to repair on the outside. It might be our own, our own deconstructing. I love how you use that too, deconstructing. The tiger mom. Deconstructing that. So,
Yeah.
sorry, my allergies are. So yeah, that's so important for us, because that's, again, our reframing of our inner dialogue, instead of like, I can't believe you made that mistake, like, what are people going to think? It's the reframing of that, and be like, of course you made a mistake, it's okay. And it was only how many times on social media, like there's a spelling error or you left out a word, like when you're writing a post or something. And I'm like, oh my God, what are people? Oh, I can't believe I did that. I was typing too fast and you shouldn't be doing more than one thing at a time. But, so it's being gentle. It's having compassion and gentleness for yourself.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, that's great. That's great. Wow, Iris, I feel like I know I could talk to you forever.
Oh,
So
Tilly's here. Hi,
Tilly's
Tilly.
here. Hi, Tilly. So you're in LA in California?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I grew up there. I grew up in Orange County. I'm originally from Newport Beach in California.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So
Yeah, so I just moved here a few years ago, like right before the pandemic hit. And before that,
oh,
I was living in China for many, many years. So, yeah, the
okay.
LA area is actually sort of new to me.
Okay. And then you hit the pandemic. And so you're like, well, we'll all stay home now.
I know, I know.
So what else do you want to talk about? Is there anything else you want to share with us? I think we really went through a few good points. I didn't write anything down. We're just talking unscripted and from our hearts. So I don't really have any pointers. I can't tell you the 3 or 4 things we talked about. But anybody who hopped on, I'll hop on anywhere, and I'm sure there's nuggets here for you in different parenting dynamics or reparenting dynamics. Is there anything else you want to share with us today? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like way back, somebody was asking about obedience and what's the balance between, how we should expect obedience and stuff like that. And I think for me, my attitude towards obedience is more like when we focus on obedience, that's really focusing on outward behavior. And it's about like controlling outward behavior instead of really getting to the heart of things. And so I don't really make obedience a goal anymore. It's really about connection. It's about understanding. Because when I have like a trusting, loving, respectful relationship with my children, then we naturally want to respect one another and do things that make each other feel good and feel good for ourselves too. So the way I approach like obedience now is to like not expect it, but really to get to the heart of the situation. Because again, like if somebody is reacting in a certain way on the outside, um, and I just try to come and stop that behavior, I'm not really dealing with the root of the problem. Like if they're reacting in a certain way because they want more connection from me, and I just tell them to like stop whining, it's annoying, go to your room until you can like come out with a better attitude or whatever it is, then I'm
Right.
not actually meeting their need. I'm not actually giving them what they require in order for that behavior to sort of lessen. And so what I focus more on now is really trying to meet the need, whatever, like digging deep, getting curious about what is the need underneath the behavior so that I can help meet it or help empower them, to like equip them with the tools to get their needs met in more legitimate ways. So yeah, that's how I approach the issue of obedience.
And I would agree with everything you said. I would absolutely, because we mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, is that behavior is communication. So, and I think that's so important, is that there's a need beneath that behavior. And through curiosity, through understanding and being aware of us, the parent, the adult, not judging the behavior, not labeling the behavior, not and checking in with our expectations. That's how we can um, go beneath the behavior, try to excavate what the need is, and really guide our children to say like, I need. And I've done it the other way, where if I give it was a couple of years ago, I remember with my kids, something happened, and it's like I kept going in, and because I wasn't like, I kept still wanting to like change the behavior until I was able to release my need, my agenda, to change the behavior, I he wasn't able to express it. I think through questions, I was able to go, oh my God, the way he acted had really nothing to do with what I thought it was. Like there was something completely going on underneath that I was unaware of, you know. And the two boys I have really kind of, like many boys, they tend to be like a little bit more inward, you know, and they little less expressive, or like their expression might be like frustration or, you know, something else that I have to really, it requires me to really pause there and go, okay, this is meaning something. He said something to me today, and I said, and I knew what it was, is he was disappointed in what I had said or what I had not done for him. And I knew that his behavior was simply a reflection of disappointment. And what I really went in and said, it's okay to be disappointed. Like honoring, like we will feel disappointed in our life, you know. And I tell myself that when I realize something's going on with me, I'm like, oh, you're feeling disappointed right now. I go in and talk. It's so understandable that you are feeling disappointed right now, you know. And this is what it is. And from here, I love it. You don't really expect obedience. We're really not expecting that anymore. Just listen to us, just follow what we say. You're coming in from connection, collaboration, understanding, and yeah, I think that's basically what you're coming in, and coming in to like hear them, let them be
Yeah.
heard and see. I mean, I had a client, and it was like all the word that kept coming up is, I just want to be understood. I just want to be understood. And it was so beautiful because so many of us can relate to that. All of our children, all they want to do is just be understood. And some of us don't have the dialogue to say, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed I wasn't invited to the party. I'm disappointed that my friend wasn't, you know, nice to me at lunch today or walked away. Like, that's a big emotion. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's a big emotion. You go to a party and your friend ignored you. You know, it's a pretty big emotion to deal with. And many times we don't want to. But so when I realized that, I was able to communicate in that way, and I was able to hold space. And by the way, behavior changed. I didn't change the behavior. I didn't do anything, but the behavior
Right.
changed through
Yeah.
understanding, through connection, right?
Exactly. And like, in what other relationship is it okay to talk about obedience, right? Like
Oh
when we
God.
say like, how can I get my children, my husband or my partner to obey me? I mean, it's just like such a power, like
Yes.
this oppressive power dynamic where you want to control somebody else's behavior. And you know, like, so how can we reframe our relationship with our parents so that it's not a controlling, hierarchical, obedience type of relationship, but more about like understanding, communication, empathy, respect, all those things that we want in
Yeah.
respectful relationships with other people, right? And just because there is like a natural imbalance of power because of developmental differences and stuff like that, that doesn't mean that we should still use our power in those ways, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's profound. You're right. You're right, because that obedience control is power. That's what it is. And you know, I mean, there are going to be, and I remember even reading this and now seeing it with my children, especially I have a son that's going to be driving in 6 months. And I noticed this, that that it's power. Like we have the power to say no. We have the power that's in our, you can't have it, you know, no more cookies for you, you can't go there, you have to, if you can't, we have this in our power. But what it leads to really at the end of the day is disconnection, not trusting, you know, controlling, rage, anger. It could lead to your child pushing all that down or going towards finding coping mechanisms to deal with the feelings that they're having. So the other side of that is understanding, is connection. And it starts with realizing that their behavior is communication. So we need to go through and deconstruct what that behavior is trying to communicate to us. That's the beauty of being an adult. The beauty. That's the hard part of being the adult, in the chronological adult. But if we're really emotionally adulting also, then that's what we're supposed to be doing. So we're all chronologically adults, but emotionally adulting requires that. That's what it requires from us. And how do we do that? We learn about what our emotions mean to us, what our anger, what our frustration, what does it look like in us? And yeah, so I'm glad that you answered that question. That was very, very beautiful, talking about that. Gosh, Iris, we talked about so many good things. I'm gonna have to go back and I have to go back and listen to it so I can give some numbers to what we talked about. But yeah, I mean, I think a beautiful takeaway. What would you say is, you know, how would you like to kind of wrap it up? I know it's almost 1 o'clock. My God, we talked for an hour. How would you like to wrap this up and kind of circle back to things and, you know, bring it full circle?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sort of like what we said before, where, you know, I feel like conscious parenting is really about seeing our child as fully human, as, you know, deserving of all the respect and dignity that we would offer another human being, and you know, embracing our own humanity as well as our children's. And so, yeah, I hope that that's the takeaway, that we can be human. We can allow our children to be human as well, and embrace that and figure out how to be in relationship as two humans, not as like a master servant or like a teacher student or these different power dynamics, but as two humans, you know, in a relationship with one another. So
that's beautiful. I honor that the whole shift for me in my parenting relationship has been, that's exactly what it's been. And it's a journey. It's a constant unlearning and learning. And every time our children change and need something from us, need something new from us, you know, it just, it allows us, at least I think of it as giving me an opportunity to evolve a little bit more and to check in with myself a little bit more. And a topic for another day would be self-care, honoring myself and my own needs so that I can honor my children and their needs. So yeah, so thank you so much for being here with me and sharing your insights. And they can reach you at untigering.com on Facebook. You have an amazing blog. So I love your blog and all your posts. And also you're very active on Instagram as well. And of course your book, book, Untigering.
my book,
You have
Untigering.
Available on Amazon.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon or, you know, all the other book platforms as well. So
excellent.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for being here live. Thank you for watching it later. And Iris, I hope I don't know what the weather is in California, but have a beautiful day, whatever the weather is, whatever it is.
Thank you.
It was so nice connecting with you and getting to know you. It was really a privilege and an honor to really get to know you. So thank you. Tilly's here. Thank you, Tilly, for you know, just connecting us. And I know, Tilly, we were both in cohort 1 for our Conscious Parenting Institute. So thank you, Iris.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Bye.
have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.